How to pick your class in Aion 2. In Aion 2, for launch of the game, we are going to have 8 available classes: Templar, Gladiator, Assassin, Ranger, Cleric, Chanter, Sorcerer, and Spiritmaster. 8 classes which we had in the past for original version of the game. Now, it's not easy decision, I know that, and it's very important decision. So in today's video, you will hear everything what you need to know to make that decision easier. Before we start, let me just say, subscribe to my YouTube channel to see more of Aion 2 videos in the future. Here on my YouTube channel, I'm preparing lots of guides for new players, PvP-wise and PvE-wise, best gear for each class, best builds for each class, dungeons, raids, news and updates. Everything what you need to know from World of Aion 2, you'll find it here on my YouTube channel. Also, follow me on Twitch. I'm live streaming every single day, mandatory, no skipping. Visit me on Twitch every day about 7 p.m. Central European Time. If you have any kind of questions regarding the game, I'll be glad to answer and also to keep you updated regarding everything what is happening in World of Aion 2. But now, let's talk about the main topic of this video, how to pick your class in Aion 2. On beginning, you need to make important decision. Are you going to play DPS, tank or healing kind of class? Yes, in Aion 2, we are having Holy Trinity system of MMORPG classes. So basically we have tank, healing and DPS classes. Let's start with healers. Regarding healing classes in Aion 2, you have 2 options. First option for you will be a cleric. This is a main healer of this game. Healing abilities of the cleric in Aion 2 will be very different from healing abilities of the cleric from original game. Here in Aion 2, most of the healing abilities will be AoE healing skills, and also, don't worry about that, cleric will have this spell. However, regarding single target healing, forget about that. Maybe there will be some skill, not many skills. And also, it's important to note that from the FGT players who have already played cleric class in Aion 2 during different kind of testing phases in Korea and also in Taiwan, they have noticed that healing of the cleric in general is weaker than healing of the cleric in original Aion. So that means that cleric will be more hybrid kind of class. You're going to be able to even make DPS on cleric, and also players in your party, they will not rely regarding healing only on you. They also need to rely on dodging, blocking, parrying, blinking, evading in general. So you cannot rely 100% on your healer. Healing will be weaker regarding cleric in this version of Aion 2. In original game, Aion Retail or Aion Live, however you want to call it, well, healer was a real healer with many healing skills, so you could really rely on healing of your cleric. Here in Aion 2, we have different idea about healing class, even that this is a main healing class of Aion 2, and without any doubt, for some hard endgame content, PvP-wise and PvE-wise, you'll want cleric in your party for healing and dispel. However, when we are talking about healing, well, cleric is not the only option. We have also Chanter. Chanter is basically a support class, also viable for healing, but not for hard endgame content. Chanter have one really amazing AoE heal ability. Also, free mantras are available for the Chanter, similar to Chanter from original game, which are giving amazing buff for the party. Chanter in Aion 2 will be much more DPS class than Chanter in original game, which is very good because in original game, Chanter was having very low DPS. It was a very beautiful support class, amazing in 1 versus 1 PvP. However, when we are talking about DPS output in PvE, Chanter in original game was not that great class. Here in Aion 2, we can see lots of amazing AoE abilities. Also, lots of stun, very useful for PvP. Almost every skill of the Chanter have a stun, which will be very interesting. So if you are talking about healing in some mid content or maybe something which is not that hard, definitely Chanter can support and heal your party. However, like I said, if you want to play a real healer, then cleric is a right pick for you. Also, I need to mention that Chanter in Aion 2 is going to use staff as main weapon and the only weapon. Each class in Aion 2 can use only one weapon, differently from original Aion. Now, let's talk about tank classes of Aion 2. When we are talking about real tanks of Aion 2, without any doubt, main tank of this game is Templar. This is a class which is using sword and shield as the main weapon and only weapon of this class. Similar to Templar from original game, this class will have very high defense abilities, also some taunt abilities to keep aggro on you while you are tanking some bosses, because your DPS output will not be that high. You cannot compare DPS output of Templar with classes like Sorcerer, Assassin, Ranger, and so on. So, regarding tanking, without any doubt, Templar is your choice if you want to play in Aion 2 tank kind of class. Like I said, expect lots of defense abilities, very beautiful gameplay with sword and shield, however, lower damage output. Is tank necessary in Aion 2? Definitely in endgame content, yes. Not only in PvE to tank some hard bosses, but also in PvP. Maybe you want to have in front of you some class with higher defense abilities. We have already seen some gameplay footage of Templar and it was looking really good. Also, let's not forget that Templar in Aion 2 will also have available extendable weapons to use. In Aion 2, not only melee classes, but also range classes will have extendable weapons. In original game, only melee classes had extendable weapons. However, in Aion 2, developers of the game, NCSoft, they have changed their mind. In Aion 2, also range classes will have extendable weapons. For example, Book for Sorcerer, Orb for Spirit Master, or a Longbow for Ranger will have extendable versions of the weapon. If you are not familiar what that means, extendable versions of the weapons are special, unique, very hard to get types of the weapon which are giving you additional range to your weapon. Few more meters which are crucial for PvP and in some cases for PvE. So you want to have extendable weapon, whatever class you play, that you can hit your target before your target hits you. This is giving you massive advantage in PvP and sometimes even in PvE. Extendable weapons are usually hard to get. Can you get them in Aion 2? How exactly can you get them in Aion 2? That's a story for another video. You will see that video on my YouTube channel very soon after launch of the game. However, for today, just to let you know, regarding tanking, Templar is the main class regarding tanking in Aion 2, using sword and shield as the main weapon. However, when we are talking about tank classes, I need to mention actually one melee DPS class by vocation, which is also possible to use as a tank class in Aion 2, and that is Gladiator. So, Gladiator is actually not a tank by vocation. By vocation, this class is a melee DPS, using Greatsword as a main weapon. Surprisingly Greatsword, because in original game, usually this class was played by Polyarm and Spear. Out of 15 years playing Aion, I have mostly played Gladiator class. I have enjoyed playing this class with many different weapons. At one point in time, I have played even Gladiator with double maces because I needed to have higher magical accuracy. That's a story again for another video. Anyway, in Aion 2, main weapon of Gladiator is Greatsword and the only weapon. And this class, even though this is amazing melee DPS class with lots of AoE abilities, this class is also viable as a tank in some content. In some content, of course, in hard endgame content, you are going to need to have Templar as a main tank, not Gladiator. However, in the rest of the content, in many cases, you can use Gladiator as a tank, because usually this class also have higher defense abilities. What else do you need to know about Gladiator? You need to know that you can play Gladiator in Aion 2 on two different skill trees. One skill tree will be dedicated to knockdown, which is very good, especially for PvP. And another skill tree will be dedicated to life leeching, leeching HP according to your damage from your opponent or mobs around you. That's not strange, because we have already seen in original game Aion that Gladiator had skills like Absorbing Fury or Draining Sword, where you could leech back HP from the target which you are attacking. So Gladiator, it's actually a melee DPS class. However, maybe sometimes possible to use as off tank. So we have covered so far healers and tanks, Now let's talk about DPS classes of Aion 2, because here you have lots of choices. First choice which you need to make is very simple. Do you want to play range or melee DPS? If you want to play melee DPS, absolutely Gladiator is one of the options viable. However, there is another amazing option, very popular also in original game, and that option is Assassin. Assassin class is using daggers as a main weapon, same like in original game. This class will have amazing burst of damage, stealth ability. When we talk about stealth, invisibility skill, yes, it's also here for Assassin class. And what is interesting, when you enter stealth state for 10 seconds, that is maximum, 10 seconds only. It's not only for you, but it's also for your party members. You heard right. Full party is going into stealth mode for 10 seconds. Also, what is important to note, this class will have ambush skill, something what would be typical for one assassin in MMORPGs, lots of dashes, jumping on the target, and of course, increased damage if you attack from behind. Lots of crit, very interesting AoE abilities, stun, and also runes. Mark stacks are here, similar to Assassin from original game. So what is Assassin of Aion 2? Well, it's something what you would expect from typical Assassin class. Stealth ability, very high burst of damage, and backstabbing, ambush skill, something very normal, I would say, for Assassin. I expect to this class have very high DPS output and to be very viable in PvP and even in PvE. So Assassin, your DPS melee option, additionally to Gladiator, if you want to play melee DPS class. Now, when we are talking about range DPS classes, you have several amazing options. Let's start with Ranger. Ranger is a range DPS class using longbow as a main weapon. You can already check dedicated videos on my YouTube channel about each class of Aion 2, where I go into deep analysis regarding skills, gameplay, everything what we know so far. Check those videos on my YouTube channel. But what I can tell you right away regarding Ranger of Aion 2 is actually really good. So this class will have some amazing AoE abilities and also skills like Silent Arrow, where you can silent your target for 5 seconds. That means that your target cannot use any skill, which is incredible for PvP, with actually really short cooldown. Now, a Ranger would be one typical range physical damage kind of class, little bit squishy if you can approach to Ranger. However, gameplay of Ranger will rely mostly on range combat with lots of dynamic and fluid attacks. We've already seen gameplay of Ranger and it was looking really good. All the time moving while attacking, and also stealth ability, which lasts for 30 seconds, but it's not for your party, of course, it's only for yourself. So only for yourself, 30 seconds. Absolutely, this class will be also viable for flying combat, and in general in PvP, it's a big advantage if you play a range class. Not always, usually not always, but it's a big advantage to be a range class in PvP, especially in original game. I expect to see that also in Aion 2. So Ranger is another very good option if you want to play a range DPS class. However, when we are talking about range DPS classes, wait a second, I have for you two amazing classes which I need to mention, and those classes are Sorcerer and Spirit Master. Let's talk first about Sorcerer. Sorcerer is a range magical DPS class which is using book or spellbook, however you want to call it, as a main weapon. This class have amazing CC abilities: freeze, sleep, curse tree, something very similar to Sorcerer from original game. Also, what is important to note, a reflex skill. Still, I cannot confirm that 100%, but looks like Winter is here as a reflex skill. Also, Iron Skin and amazing burst of damage. So if we talk about classes with lots of CC abilities, with nice crowd control and also very massive damage, Sorcerer is the class for you. In original game, Sorcerer was very popular class, not only because of high damage, but also because of CC abilities. If you want to go to play PvP, one of the mandatory classes to have in your party will be Sorcerer. So take in consideration, Sorcerer definitely maybe a little bit squishy. I mean, that's kind of normal. This would be one typical mage kind of class, glass cannon kind of class. However, yes, cannon, glass cannon kind of class, because if you can approach it, yeah, maybe you can defeat it in PvP. However, usually that will not happen. This class will keep you on distance with lots of CC abilities, and then with massive damage, you're going to be defeated. So Sorcerer, definitely viable class for PvP and for PvE, depending on your build. Don't worry, I got you covered regarding each class of Aion 2. I'm preparing dedicated videos on my YouTube channel after the launch of the game over there on servers in Korea and Taiwan. You will see dedicated videos regarding best builds for each class, including Sorcerer. However, when we are talking about range DPS classes, story is still not over, because I need to mention Spirit Master. This is one of the legendary classes of original Aion. Also, I have no doubt it will be extremely strong in Aion 2. What we have seen so far, main weapon of this class is Orb, or should I say 2 orbs, because in Aion 2, differently from Spirit Master in original game, you can use 2 orbs as a main weapon. This class is about using spirits. You can use spirits on similar way, not exactly the same like in original game. Here in Aion 2, you cannot command spirits like in original game. In Aion 2, you are going to use spirits as a turrets. So you can summon different kind of spirits which will help you in your combat. And also, I need to mention Fear. One of the most famous abilities of Spirit Master is Fear. Here in Aion 2, Spirit Master will have available few Fear abilities, some of them AoE, some of them single target, which will make this class very viable in PvP. If you time properly this skill in party versus party PvP, this is a difference between victory and losing the fight. So I have no doubt when we are talking about 4 versus 4, 8 versus 8, and in generally party versus party or some kind of massive scale PvP, Spirit Master will be one of the very popular classes to play. Also 1 versus 1, I remember in original game when I have met Spirit Master in Arena, 1 versus 1, also available in Aion 2. Yeah, that was really tough situation, because this class have amazing abilities and can fight solo any party, not only because of Fear, not only because of spirits, but in generally, it's a range DPS class, magical type of the class. Is it squishy? Similar to Sorcerer? Yes, definitely it's squishy. However, it's very powerful regarding damage output and, like I said, regarding control with Fear skill. When we are talking about DPS classes, I kind of feel that I need to mention that Chanter in Aion 2, which I have already mentioned during this video as one of the healing and support classes of this game, is also actually viable as DPS class. I can already see now with lots of stun abilities and amazing and fluid gameplay with staff, Chanter will be viable in PvP and in PvE. Chanter of Aion 2 will have a much higher DPS output than Chanter in original game, so I feel that I can classify this class as one melee, slash range DPS class. Chanter in Aion 2 will have 2 dash skills with range and few range abilities, so I cannot say it's only melee class. Yes, by vocation, Chanter will be a melee class using staff as a main weapon, with support abilities, mantras, some healing, but to some point, I expect to see Chanter also in DPS role. Maybe sometimes even possible in tank role. All depends on situation, of course. If you want to play real tank, like I said, you're going to play Templar or maybe Gladiator as off-tank. However, Chanter is kind of jack of all trades. You can use Chanter for PvP and PvE, healing, support, and even DPS or tanking. So I feel I need to mention on the end of this video Chanter as a class, possibly to play even as your DPS option. So guys, for today, you know everything what you need to know to make your decision easier, how to pick your class in Aion 2. I have already lots of videos and I'm preparing new videos specifically about each class, skills, best gear and best builds for each class. You'll find these videos on my YouTube channel, and I have already videos like few days ago. You can check those videos on my YouTube channel where I'm talking in details what we know so far about skills of each class. For today, in this short video preview to help you with decision what class to pick as your main in Aion 2. If you are interested into Aion 2, make sure to check my YouTube channel. I already have lots of videos and I'm preparing lots of videos in the future. I'm going to play the game actively on servers in Korea and Taiwan, and you will see guides for new players, PvP-wise and PvE-wise, best builds for each class, dungeons, raids, crafting, news and updates, everything what you need to know from World of Aion 2, you'll find it here on my YouTube channel. So make sure to subscribe. Also, follow me on Twitch. I'm live streaming every single day, mandatory, no skipping. Visit me on Twitch every day about 7 p.m. Central European Time. If you have any kind of questions regarding the game, I'll be glad to answer and also to keep you updated regarding everything what is happening in World of Aion 2. Thank you for watching the video. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Twitch, and see you soon with another Aion 2 video.